I've started the meeting. So
Right.
welcome back everybody from the summer break. And if you weren't able to join our general meeting last night, it was well attended. It was a great meeting with various speakers. But tonight is our food waste. We're just going to talk about the food waste. Jeremiah had a conflict with his green team, so we're just going to go over food waste stuff. But I just want to introduce Catie from Garden State Composting, and she's going to be our guest speaker tonight. So, Catie, I don't know if you had slides, if you wanted to present anything.
No, I'm just gonna I have some stuff that I put together, but I'm just gonna talk.
Okay.
That's cool. Great. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Like you said, I'm Catie Doherty. I'm co-founder of Garden State Composting. I went to school for environmental conservation and sustainability, but was looking to go more into like the corporate end of that, hoping to work for like B Corp, things like that. When I was on that trajectory, I got COVID and got long COVID and no longer could work. So I had to leave my job. I was out of commission for a couple months. And out of my unemployment came like just feeling like I wanted to do some, boredom, but also feeling like I wanted to do more than just be on this like career path of something that might take a while for me to feel like I'm actually making any kind of a difference at all. And I was just looking actually just for my own use for a composting company around here to use a pickup service because I used one in Philly and I used one in New Hampshire when I lived up there. And I noticed that we didn't have any in this area. And I was like, that's weird. I wonder why. And I'm bored. So why don't I just start one, So basically, me and my partner decided to do that. And it's been 2 years now, a little over 2 years, and it's been really awesome. But I've also, obviously, I'm sure, as everyone knows, we've run into a lot of things that have been barriers to the composting community and industry in the state. So I'm just going to kind of go over some stuff. I'm sure all of you know a lot of this stuff already, but I'll just I'll just go over all of it. So basically, globally, 1/3 of food waste produced for human consumption is lost or wasted, which amounts to 1.3 billion tons per year. And that results in a squandering of important limited resources and contributes to 8% of the greenhouse gases emitted, more than all of US animal agriculture and almost as much as total US agriculture. And when food waste is sent to the landfill, it emits methane gas, a greenhouse gas that can have up to 80 times the global heating potential of CO2. Methane, which is also emitted from animal agriculture, is responsible for 25% of climate change that we are experiencing, most of that being from animal agriculture, but of course, food waste contributing to that. Every pound of food waste emits about 1.9 pounds of CO2 equivalent. We use CO2 equivalent instead of methane with these measurements a lot of the time, just so that we can make easy comparisons to common emitters that are often emitting carbon dioxide. But yeah, they emit that when they go to the landfill because they can't break down properly like they would if they were in a compost pile. Camden County uses the Covanta plant. It's an incinerator, and they're one of the highest industrial emitters and polluters in the area, and that is located in Camden, which is a huge environmental inequity concern. And while food waste that is sent to landfill emits more methane, Covanta emits many different kinds of greenhouse gases and chemicals, and when wet waste, such as food waste, is incinerated, it reduces the efficiency of the plant, which leads to more emissions and more energy input for the plant. So what we do to try to combat this food waste is we offer weekly and biweekly compostables pickups curbside for residents living in parts of Camden County and Burlington County. We accept just about all kitchen waste, kitchen scraps, excluding meat and dairy. And our customers get 5-gallon bin to put all their, compostables in. And then they put them out on the curb on their collection day. We come pick it up. And since our start in 2021, we have kept 142,245 pounds estimated of food waste out of the landfill, which if we were assuming all of that was going to a landfill, which it's not, so it's hard to make these, these equivalencies, but if we're going to assume it was all going to a landfill, that would be about 270,266 pounds of carbon dioxide equivalent kept out of the atmosphere. So we also offer compostables pickups to local businesses in the area, restaurants who want to keep food waste out of their dumpsters. Station Coffee in Merchantville is one of them. We also have Wild & Co. Juicery in Collingswood and Cinnaholic in Marlton. All three of these businesses are either vegan or vegetarian, so they're able to compost just about all of their kitchen waste, including their like paper products like their clamshells and you know, boxes and things like that, which is a huge, takes away a lot of their trash. It's really cool. And they're also able to signal to their customers that they are composting with us through window signage. Like we have posters and stickers they put in their windows, which I feel like is a really good way to signal to like-minded people who want to support businesses who are taking responsibility for their waste and for their impact. And I think that's really amazing that they're doing that. So obviously there are, you know, many places in the United States where composting is commonplace. It's not as common here as it is in places, you know, across the world, like in Europe, it's more common, places like that. But there are some places where they have some good programs. A lot of them are offering service through the contracting of private collection companies like ourselves. Some of them are collecting like in the, you know, just their municipality is doing it with their yard waste. San Francisco is a really good example of a compost initiative, what it can look like when it's matured. They offer municipal composting and they even require it. They fine homeowners and landlords if they do not follow the composting ordinances. They charge for the composting pickup as part of the rate that anyone would pay for the recycling or their trash collection. So it's all included in that rate that you would pay for that. And then they partner with a private facility called Recology that receives and processes those materials. So there are obviously ones that are closer to home. One being Princeton actually just started a program today. They just started their registration. So they are starting registration today. There's going to be 2 locations for a drop-off. So it's going to be a drop-off instead of a pickup. But they're going to choose from a lottery of everyone who's registered. And that's going to be 200 people that's chosen, 100 people for each location. And they're also going to be like implementing a little bit of like a quiz or like a questionnaire when people are registering to see if the people who are looking to participate already know what should be composted and what shouldn't, to kind of gauge how successful they think the program is going to be. Hopefully it's going to be something that this is just how they're going to start off and gauge how it's going to go. And then maybe they'll implement a pickup collection program, or maybe they'll offer some more locations or enable more people to participate in that. And the compostables that they collect there are going to go to Trent Renewables, which I'm sure, I don't know if people know, but I'm sure people know what Trent Renewables is. It's a composting facility in Trenton. They use a more of like a mechanized composting indoor. They do heat added, pressure added. And then they create energy with the waste heat that comes from that as well, which is pretty cool. So one that is a little bit more personal to me, because it's who we partner with, is in Media, Pennsylvania. It's Kitchen Harvest. They're a processor and hauler in Media, Pennsylvania, and they operate out of Linvilla Orchards. They have had a lot of success with a bunch of haulers popping up in Media because there's access to the pile. The laws in Pennsylvania around composting make this possible, whereas in New Jersey, the story around composting looks a lot different. So in many states, such as PA, which we're talking about, farms are allowed to accept compostable materials from outside sources, including food waste. But in New Jersey, farms are only allowed to accept a limited amount of landscape waste, such as leaves, but they're not allowed to accept food waste from residents in their community or from outside sources. So a lot of these composting facilities in New Jersey are industrialized. It's pulling them away from the small scale natural agricultural composting processes. The separation of agriculture and composting really slows the motivation for compost programs. Many farmers would not only benefit from the materials that they would be collecting, processing, and creating for their farms, but they would also benefit from the extra income from accepting compostable materials from haulers and from selling the end products to garden centers and to their communities. The accessibilities of these piles would also allow for smaller community composting initiatives. It would make it more possible for these practices to become commonplace. We are, and we were one of those businesses or one of those people who deal with those barriers around farms not being able to accept compostables in the state. When we started, we didn't know any of the regulations yet around that, and we were hoping to partner with a smaller farm and process on their land for exchange for the farm getting free material, free compost, end product, as well as a percentage of the revenue that we were getting from doing the collection service. But we realized quickly when we were reaching out to farms that they were not allowed to accept the waste. And a lot of them already knew that, meaning they probably had wanted to and had looked into it and were steered away from doing that. And then when we reached out to the more industrialized composting facilities in the state, such as Trenton Renewables, we were not taken seriously because we did not have trash trucks and they were not set up to accept waste from regular pickup trucks, which, is fair, but at the same time, you can see how that would make it really difficult for micro haulers or smaller haulers to get started if they don't have anywhere to bring their compostables. So now we bring our food waste to media, to Kitchen Harvest at Lynn Villa, and their partnership is exactly what our original vision was. Once we started tipping there, we realized like, oh, this is exactly what we wanted to do, and we can't do that in this state, which is really sad because we wanted it to be something was in the Garden State in New Jersey and keeping it local. But because we really like something that was super important to us was keeping it like that natural composting process and keeping agriculture and composting hand in hand like it is at Lynn Villa. We didn't really want to go with a more industrialized composting setup because, we want everything to be no energy input kind of a situation really. So the partnership that they have, Kitchen Harvest and the orchard that we bring it to, has been a huge impetus for composting in Pennsylvania. I think is a really good example of how it should look in most states. Haulers from far and wide have been able to tip at Lynn Villa for like a standard tipping fee. I think there's something like 5 haulers, varying, sizes of haulers, from micro haulers to, haulers that have thousands of customers, that all are able to coexist in media with enough people composting in the city to keep them all in business, which I think is really incredible that enough people in the city are composting for all of them to coexist. And they actually just started, Kitchen Harvest just partnered with the city itself to start to offer composting to the city residents through the municipality, contracting out Kitchen Harvest and offering the service to community members for a much discounted price, and then the city itself offsetting the price and paying Kitchen Harvest for the rest of that fee, which is exactly what they're doing in San Francisco, where you see like this really amazing matured composting program. And they are really like right on track to be doing the same thing while coexisting with these private composting haulers are still existing alongside them. So I, really hope that we can get to that point here. But obviously those rules around composting on farms are a huge barrier. While it doesn't necessarily keep us from composting and having these programs, because we do have composting facilities, it makes it really difficult for it to become widespread. When we have access to piles on farms, there's no need for an initial expensive monetary investment on the part of the hauler or the part of the farmer, because there can be that partnership, and it allows for more of these haulers to pop up. and coexist and keep it local and have them be all through our state instead of all having to go to one central place to haul. Not only that, but it saves on gas and the emissions from the transportation that come with hauling the compost. And so, yeah, I think it's pretty wild that in this state, we've separated these two inherently connected processes of agriculture and composting. But basically, our vision is for these rules to be changed, and we're very excited for what's to come, and we're very happy that there are advocacy groups like you guys and like New Jersey Compost Council and just these community groups and green teams that are really trying to show their cities and their towns what they want and what's important to them. And yeah, we're excited to see some things change, and I do think it's going that way based on what we've seen. We've seen a lot of things change lately, so yeah, I'm excited, and I'm happy that there are groups like you guys that are trying to do some stuff about it. So yeah, that's basically all I have for you guys.
Thanks, Katie. That's a great overview of really the situation really in South Jersey, because
Yeah.
we are so far away from Trenton renewables, right?
Yeah.
When you're closer to the depot, like basically, it makes it easier. But being in South Jersey, we have access to all the farms.
Right.
So it's kind of like it's just such a misstep on the state to not allow for the farmers to accept outside compost material.
Absolutely.
I do know that there is some few loopholes if you have animals, like you can do it under the ag instead of the DEP, you can do it as animal feed. But then you have to be extremely careful on where you're picking up from to make sure that nobody's contaminating the food waste.
Exactly.
So with that being said, I was wondering, what are some of the things that you see from your own collection? Are you seeing pretty good compliance to your rules, or do you see a certain amount of contamination? And what is the biggest thing that you see that's contaminating the compost?
That's a good question. I definitely see contamination. It's less than I expected when I started, to be honest with you. I think because the people who are signing up are doing it just, paying for it out of their own pocket, under their own volition. They really want to be part of programs and lower their impact. So a lot of people who sign up for our service already are educated a little bit on composting. But I definitely still see some contamination. Dairy products are a big thing where, some places take meat and dairy, or like Trenton Renewables accepts meat and dairy. So I understand sometimes there can be confusion about that. It depends on the system you're using. I definitely see dairy. That's the biggest thing. And that's kind of the least worrisome contamination, in my opinion, because if it's just a little bit, it gets lost in the void. It doesn't really matter. Sometimes I see bones and pieces of chicken, and same thing when it's just like a little tiny bit, I'm not too worried about it. I mean, of course I want people to follow the rules, but if it's just here and there, I don't freak out about it. I think the thing that I see the most, and it's something that I think is actually a bigger issue with the composting industry, at least in the state, is compostable plastics, because natural composting processes cannot break that material down. And even at places like Trenton Renewables that technically could break it down because they're using these heat added, pressure added systems, they have a mechanized sorter that sorts out plastic. And because the material weighs and feels the same as plastic, it gets sorted out and thrown away anyway. So there are all of these products that are being sold to restaurants and coffee shops and what have you, that are being sold as compostable and as the better option for disposables, when really they actually may be worse because they're oftentimes not even recyclable. So even though the recycling industry is like, who even knows what's going on there, but so I don't even want to go there, but at least some like disposable plastics are able to go to recycling, and a lot of these compostable plastics aren't, and they're almost never composted. And you see a lot of the compostable, like compost industry initiatives being sponsored by the companies that make these plastics. And I'm sure they're doing that because they know that their stuff isn't being composted and they want to get to that point. It's just hard to see it happening at the wrong timing, where these products are all just going to the landfill anyway. But that's definitely the biggest contamination I see. And people are trying to do the right thing. Like, they legitimately think they can compost it because it says that you can. Right. And we're sure to say that you can't on our lists of what can't go in. But of course, some people might forget or whatever, and they throw it in there. So luckily where we compost, they do have a sorter, like just like it's not like a mechanized one, but it's like basically a big like strainer that catches plastic. But if it's small enough, it gets through. So if anyone's ever bought compost from us, which we get back from the farm, there's going to be a ton of produce stickers. If you don't take the stickers off your produce, it's stickers. They're plastic. They don't decompose. They don't compost. And they fall through the little, sifters, the strainers or whatever. So there's going to be a ton of that. And that stinks to see when I'm bagging compost at the farm. Like, there's so many produce stickers in here. So that's a bigger one too. People don't think about. They just, they have an avocado that went bad, they throw it in. They have a banana that went bad, they throw it in. They don't peel the sticker off first. And even though it's small, when you are looking at this beautiful end product compost, and then you see a bunch of little pieces of plastic in that kind of stinks to see that. But again, I think it's just like we've been conditioned to just like not really think about like the little details of things, but they end up mattering.
Yeah, I think that
I always remove my stickers.
Thank you. You're the best.
Yeah, I compost at home, so I
had thrown an avocado away, and I opened up the bin and I could see the sticker, and I went, oh, and I reached in and took it.
That's great, but a lot of people don't even realize they should be doing that, So, but yeah, it's like no one's fault, really.
I really think that's a place for improvement by the industry itself, from the produce industry. Like, why does everything have to have a little sticker on it? Like, it really does.
There are compostable stickers. Those exist. Like, use those. At least, whatever.
Katie, I wanted to ask, do you have you had any contact with any of the state representatives to kind of plead your case, or are you just kind of leaving it up to advocacy groups that are out there?
Yeah, so we're members of the New Jersey Compost Council, and they do a really good job with that. They're a lot more knowledgeable than I am about the policies around things. So I luckily feel like I can leave it up to them for the most part. I do hope to start being able to do some more of that outreach and research myself now that we're a little bit more settled with the business. But yeah, they do a pretty good job with reaching out and trying to do like real policy work. So they're doing a pretty good job. But I hope so. I hope to start doing that. I really do. That's like my goal for the upcoming year.
It seems like such a silly rule.
It is. And I still haven't been able to figure out why, because it wasn't always that way.
Yeah, so the reason is from runoff. So it's when it rains, runoff, and the leachy and stuff. So they're concerned about water contamination, pollution.
So they're worried about it contaminating the produce that's being produced on farms. Is that what it is?
No, they're concerned about it getting in the waterways.
In the waterways.
Most farms usually have water source. Around and stuff like that. So that's really that's been DEP's biggest concern. And then also, of course, when somebody is trying to get a licensure to do this in it's resident, not in my backyard.
Yes.
So right kind of thing. So I feel like really there's got to be a lot of education around it. And but I'm like, well, you live by a farm. There's pretty smelly things that come off of a farm. I've been near other farms, and
Absolutely.
stuff. So, I mean, animals have their own, odoriferous
Exactly.
things, but
And I don't know if it's just me because I'm used to the smell, but when I'm at the pile, like, I feel like if it's done the right way, it doesn't smell, like, so bad that the smell carries. You know
that's
what I
correct.
mean?
Yeah.
So
So
if it's done the right way, it's not, and of course it smells, sure, when you're close to it, but from far away, I don't smell it. You can't smell it. But I'm just like, I think maybe I'm a little bit like used to the smell at this point, so maybe it's just me, but
well, there's a whole
Desensitized.
science. There's a whole science to the windrow
Mhm.
opened air composting, and it shouldn't really smell. I mean, so
Right.
there's only one facility in the whole state of New Jersey, and that's up in North Jersey, the northwest part of Jersey. It's called Ag Choice.
Mhm.
They're very knowledgeable on the process,
Yeah.
and so we have the knowledge base here in the state, and I
Yeah.
know the owner of Ag Choice, he is always going after DEP on, changing the rules and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, because
Yeah.
they've been in business for a long time, and
Mhm.
they're the gold standard of doing
Right.
it. If they
Mhm.
can do it, everybody can do it,
Right.
you
Right.
know?
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely. I
yeah.
remember I was doing research around because me and my partner were thinking of starting our own facility in South Jersey and doing the open air composting. And I was looking into all of the land requirements. We had this one property that we were looking at, and I had to look at a map and see what was the grade of the land and how far was it from bodies of water. Is it in the floodplain? How close to a residential line is it? What's the population? There's so much already that goes into this, which I think is perfectly fine and probably very necessary, obviously, if you're doing something that could potentially harm waterways or cause a smell or a public nuisance issue, what have you. Um, and I think that those laws are enough. Like, I feel like if we're following all those rules that are put in place already, why not allow that to be on farmland where we already have so much of it in Jersey, you know? Um, but yeah, it's we have these great facilities in the state. I just feel like it's not accessible to a lot of small haulers, and I wish that were different.
Yeah. So, that's interesting that you thought about being the end product, like doing
Mhm.
doing it yourself.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about doing it in a different manner in commercial vermicomposting? Because I know California and some other states have a lot of very good commercial vermicomposting facilities that are small scale that
Mhm.
could be something that's a little different than the windrow
Right,
system, and
right,
there's not one here in New Jersey, so
right.
just food for thought.
No, I think that's a great idea. We never really considered doing that ourselves, but we did briefly partner with, I think, I want to say he calls himself Delaware River Composting, I believe. Um, he primarily does like education advocacy with composting. We were bringing him food waste on the down low. To bring to the mastery school in Camden because they had a urban agriculture class there at the high school, and so we were bringing them food waste, and they were learning about composting there in the class. And he was using our food waste, and he was doing vermicomposting, and he had the worms and everything, and they had a whole setup in the basement of the school, and it was really cool. And I he is super 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 knowledgeable and into it, and he's been wanting to partner with us on that kind of stuff for a while, and I never really fully like considered doing that process itself if I were to open a facility just because I don't know much about it. But I think that's a great idea, and I definitely would consider it because I think it's awesome. And he recently told me about a new kind of composting, and I can't remember what he called it, but it's with a certain kind of larva, and they eat meat and they eat like all sorts of
Yeah,
stuff.
it's the black soldier flies.
Yes, that's he was telling me about it, and I was like,
Mhm.
"It's really," and then he was like, "You can sell the dead larvae as mealworms to pet stores. I was like, this is great. There's no waste involved. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think like it's a really good idea to do stuff like that.
So Sean, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. By the way, Gina, great guest as always. Catie, first of all, thanks for what you do. This is awesome to have somebody here in South Jersey that's committed to doing this. A couple of questions that I'm not asking for your secret sauce or any like confidential proprietary company information. I'm just curious. What's the legal structure? Are you a corporation? Are you a nonprofit?
Yes, we're a corporation.
Okay. The reason I was asking that one is just because like a thing like the IRA, like as a newer company, the tax credits might not be that beneficial to you yet, because you don't have all these profits to offset, but there are direct payments, from the IRA for other entities. But it's really fascinating what you're doing. One of the cases that we're trying to make, working with municipalities and getting some folks who might not necessarily, be classified as tree huggers. In fact, a lot of them might be, red hat wearing folks, if you know what I mean.
I do.
Is the property tax consequences of food waste, and how it's wet, so it's the heaviest thing, and it's the most expensive to haul, and so it's in all of our best interest to not send that to the incinerator. And we're, with respect to some of our friends, in our environmental community, we can't just shut off the incinerator tomorrow, right? We need somewhere. We need to transition that. And I'm just thinking, like, in terms of capacity, like, where are you guys? Are you, as an organization, are you at max now, or like, could you double the amount of food waste you take in tomorrow?
Definitely double it. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. As it stands right now, we could double it. And then it's just one of those things that we're waiting on the demand to kind of double our capacity, in terms of employees, in terms of, because right now it's just me and my business partner, just the two of us. And he actually has a full-time job. So it's really just me doing everything.
Right.
It's more than a full-time job. But we're kind of waiting for that demand to make these investments into, more labor, more trucks, more work days, whatever it is, because we don't want to have this crazy input energy wise, in terms of like, we don't want to over emit when we're not offsetting it, or more than offsetting it with the amount of food waste that we're keeping out of the landfill or the incinerator. But yeah, we could absolutely double right now and hopefully quadruple if the demand is there for a service like ours.
Awesome.
Yeah, and in terms of Covanta too, like you were saying, we can't shut the plant off. Like, we obviously need somewhere to bring this waste. I think it's unfortunate that it's an incinerator, and especially where it's located, I think it's extremely unfortunate. But like I was saying, like, keeping food waste out, which is something we could easily do, would not only just keep the amount of waste being incinerated in general down, but also, if you're not burning the wet stuff, like you were saying, less emissions, less energy input to the incinerator, and that kind of thing. So, anything that we can do to try to keep less stuff burning there would be good.
Yep.
Yeah, that was an interesting fact that you had said, that the food waste being wet made it less efficient for the incinerator. So obviously it increases the emissions, which, that's like a no-brainer. Like, that's the first thing that should be diverted from going.
Right. Exactly. And you know what's even crazier is, I was reading recently, and I'm not sure if this was definitely passed, but it looks like there was going to be some sort of ordinance that was passed that was going to be allowing more wet waste than they're already accepting to be incinerated, like not food waste, like actual liquid, which, like, sure, the incinerator's hot enough and there's enough solid waste to like add liquid to it, but like, wow, that's really not good, because it's further going to lower the efficiency, further going to increase the emissions, and it's a shame that it's going in the opposite direction that it should be going. So yeah,
I think our environmental justice group is basically on top of that situation.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. I've been trying to do more and more research on that, because that was an almost minor of mine, environmental sociology and equity and stuff. And when I learned about the plant, I was like, uh-oh, I gotta like learn more about this, because I can't believe I grew up in Camden County. I moved away for a few years, but I've been back for a while now, and I just heard about it. Like, I just, sometimes I'm just like so in my own world that I don't even know where my waste is going, which is crazy because I went to school for this, right? And I heard about the plant and was like, oh my God, how did I not know that my waste was going to this place, and that it's in Camden, and like that it's emitting all of this stuff. Like, it just blew my mind. I was like, I need to learn more about this. So that's been like a little bit of a obsession of mine to try to look more into all that stuff. So yeah, I'm glad.
But I think that's a natural reaction to most people. They have no idea where their waste goes.
Right.
It's just out of their sight. It's gone.
Exactly.
It's gone forever, but nothing's gone forever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah. So does anybody else have any further questions for Catie? All right, Sandy, you're on mute.
Yeah.
There you go.
I did want to ask about this place at Lynn Villa. Do they accept like from the local residents? Do they accept contributions? Like if somebody had a bucket or something, and because my sister lives near there, very near there.
I'm not sure if they allow, I don't think they allow private citizens to come onto the property just for like legal reasons. Like onto the property, meaning they can come to Lynn Villa because it's an orchard and they have a lot of like agro-tourism going on there. They have animals and all that kind of stuff, like a little petting zoo type of thing. But I think they don't let anyone down to the pile itself. But there are so many options for pickup services, including the media itself having it now as an option through the municipality. So if if you know someone who lives there, there's a lot of options that way. I think it's probably at this point the least expensive option if they live in media to do it that way. But most of these haulers that are tipping at Lynn Villa, their ranges are broader than media, so they go to the surrounding towns. Mother Compost is one.
She's actually in Aston.
Okay, yeah, that's close.
Yeah.
I would tell her to look up Mother Compost. That's one has a pretty broad range, and they tip there. Kitchen Harvest itself, who does the processing on the land, they might have a broader range as well. So I would tell them to look them up.
What was it? Mother what?
Mother Compost.
Compost. That's all my sister needs to hear, is that I want her to start recycling her garbage.
And there you go.
I have them on board on just about everything else. She stopped buying plastic bottles and
Love it. That's great.
I have to move on to the next level.
Always needs one person in the family to be bugging everyone else about this stuff, and luckily we have multiple in my family, so it's not all on me.
And Sandy, it's very easy in Pennsylvania because there are so many micro haulers. I mean, I work in Pennsylvania and I have a pickup at work, we have a 5-gallon bucket that they come every Friday and pick it up, and stuff. Yep. So I just had to Google it in Pennsylvania. It's New Jersey where it's hard to find.
It's not, it's fairly new now, but it's really a renewal, because my grandfather, they lived in Rhode Island, and he had a bucket, and they put their food waste into the bucket, and it was picked up, and it was called his swill bucket. And it was, they did away with it eventually, but he had that swill bucket for years, and we were all grossed out about it, but it was something that, they did in the past, and they just did away with it. And now everybody wraps everything up in plastic and, so.
Yeah, I hear that in New Jersey too all the time.
Yeah. So Catie, I have one last question. Because you are, just getting started and smaller, and I see that you talked about that you had a couple of businesses on board, which is great, and hopefully that spreads and builds, and because we all know food establishments usually have a lot of food waste, so we always hope that they can get on board. Although restaurants actually have one of the lower ones, because when they see food going in the trash, that's,
That's profits.
profit loss.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so I mean, really, it is residents that are the largest contributor to food waste. But I was wondering about municipality programs, and
Mhm.
maybe there's different, you were talking about Princeton and how they're going to have, some drop off sites, which
Yeah.
I was surprised by, because I know I had gone to their town council meeting to talk about their program. I thought it was going to be pickup, but
Mhm.
maybe they had some hurdles that they couldn't get over. So, but there are some towns in New Jersey that do have some municipal drop off sites, and they're doing something very similar to Princeton, where the people who are involved have to take a quiz, and be educated before they are allowed to participate, which is great, right?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but we do want to have more people on board, and maybe it's easier. I heard of a hauler in Central Jersey that does, they don't do it where it's like at the municipal facilities where they come and pick it up. I think they may have a few, but one of the other programs they do is they go to the farmers markets.
Okay, yeah.
So they have people that sign up, but they just advertise where it's like you bring your bucket and you
Yeah.
pay X, to
Yeah.
dump your bucket, and but it's still being hauled by you.
Mhm.
So are you familiar with that type of system? And is that something that you are looking into participating with one of the municipalities in the area?
So we don't have it as a partnership with a municipality. We do actually have a drop-off option at the Collingswood Farmers Market. So it's a cheaper option. It's like, I'm trying to remember now. We only go once a month, but it's like $5 for 15 pounds to compost. We have a little scale there, and an extra dollar for every extra 5 pounds. But Collingswood is one of those places where we really do want to do a partnership with the municipality, because that's where a majority of our customers are. Um, I don't know why, but I'm assuming it's just the people who live in Collingswood are tend to be super into and interested in this stuff. And because we're at the markets, there's a lot more visibility for us there in that town. And we've had people who are connected somehow to the town itself who have approached us wanting to figure it out. And I've always been like, absolutely. Like, I will come to any meeting, I'll talk to anybody, let me know what you need from me, and then it always just they just kind of don't say anything after that. Cause I think that they just don't really know how it would work. And they won't even, like, if they set up a meeting with me, I could explain how it works, because I've seen it work in other places. I've, done this research to see how it works in other places, and it's really not that complicated. The barrier for us in terms of having a partnership with a municipality would be wanting the compost to stay in the state for me and not having to bring it over to media. It's the same distance as it would be to Trenton for us. So we could, and we've been, Trenton has said we can tip there if we want. We've been set up with them. We just decided not to. But I think I would want to figure out a way to keep it more local to Collingswood. Like, if there were some way to do that. And, like, of course, there's not like empty space in Collingswood. It's all pretty much filled up. But that would be probably the one thing that I would want to try to look into further, about trying to keep it a little bit more local. But I definitely want to. And I think that is our ultimate goal, is to have these partnerships with the municipality to try to make it cheaper for people, borderline, almost free, hopefully, if it can get to that point. If enough people say, hey, this is a waste management service that we want, just like we have our trash and our recycling, can we have that included, so that they don't have to pay like an extra $25 a month or whatever, have it included in their waste management fees or whatever, in their tax dollars. That's our ultimate goal. I think, just in Jersey, there just is these hurdles. But I think if it got to the point where the municipality was interested, I would just kind of bite it and go to Trent Renewables, you know. I would just say whatever, you know, like until I can go somewhere nearby that is doing like open air composting, this will have to do kind of a thing. And at least at that point I could accept meat and dairy, and that's pretty cool. So
yeah. And I think, you know, I mean, there are initiatives in the state to, you know, it's just dragging DEP along and getting the rules, you know, updated and allowing for certain things. Of course, we want to protect our other natural resources like water,
absolutely,
and stuff. But you know, so we understand those rules, but at the same time, they have to, you know, loosen up and learn new science, basically, really, you know. So things are changing, and so, and if we want to meet the governor's, you know, goals of reduction and stuff, and there is money available, you know, Sean talked about the new infrastructure plans and stuff, so it's coming. It's just like we're the type of people though that want to be, it should be here yesterday. So yeah.
And I can definitely feel it. And I, you know, we've seen like, you know, the laws that change around like food manufacturing and how all that waste is required to be composted and things like this like that are now laws, which I think is fantastic. Yeah, but I'm just hoping that we can, sometimes it feels like the timing's off with certain things, like, but we'll get there.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This has been a great discussion. And we'll share this with those who weren't able to come on tonight, but I think this was a very good discussion with you. And thank you again for coming.
For having me. Yeah, thank you. It's
Katie.
awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. It was great speaking with you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for all you do. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.